This article caught my attention from the New York Times. It says UPS drivers say brutal heat is endangering their lives. So I'm going to read some of the excerpts from this article. So here goes. Just looking for some right here. It says that day, Gubel 26 had delivered about 200 packages. Temperatures had soared into the high 80s, and it was even hotter inside the metal shell of the back of the truck, where with each stop he would spend up to a minute or so to retrieve his cargo, sweat beading on his skin. So it's pretty brutal, obviously, you can tell from reading the excerpt, just to be a UPS driver in this type of weather. He says, my body was losing it. Google said paramedics recovered him in ice packs to bring down his body temperature and took him to a hospital. I was just trying to hold on as best as I could. And so this excerpt here really got my attention on this article. It says here, some UPS workers have shared photographs that show thermometer readings up to 150 degrees in the back of their truck. So imagine just going to the back of that truck and just being in 150 degrees of heat. That's like basically being in an oven. Just you're getting baked just going right in the back of your truck. Just that to me is really insane. And just another quote right here. It says now a string of heat-related illnesses among the drivers has renewed calls to improve their working conditions. They are vomiting. Their bodies are shutting down, said Dave Reeves, president of Local 767, a Texas local of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, which represents 350,000 UPS workers across the country. It's awful. So they're having all these illnesses from going on these trips. And one thing I also found interesting in this article is that you've had people who worked for UPS who have literally died from the heat. It was just that bad that they passed out. There was just one story of this guy just throwing up all over the place, getting outside of his truck. To me, that's really terrible to work in those conditions. There have been a ton of these drivers who've been hospitalized. There was just one guy who just collapsed right in front of the person he had delivered the items to. Just he fell right in front of this person to the ground. So it's pretty bad. The thing that stood out to me in this article was also how in these delivery trucks from UPS, they don't have air conditioning in the back of them. So when it gets really hot, you're just going to be basically baked inside of these trucks, and at least in the back when you take out the packages. That to me is brutal. It does say in the article for the trucks that have tractor trailers, they do have cooling units in the back, air conditioning, but they don't have AC for the regular trucks that are not tractor trailers. So that's very brutal. There is a campaign to put air conditioning in these trucks that normally don't have it in the back areas. I definitely think that's a must. That's a really inhumane conditions to work in. Just that's like third world working conditions, if we're being honest. That's like something like China would do, or some other backwards country would, to have their people work in these types of conditions. So I really hope that they do put the air conditioning units in the back of these trucks. No one should have to suffer like this. There was some congressman, if I could find him in this article, that was trying to pass a bill that would require these companies like UPS to put air conditioning units in the back of the trucks. I definitely think that's necessary because it's so hot in the back of these trucks when you enter them. And outside during the summertime is super warm, especially now with this horrible climate change that we're going through, that it really makes these working conditions insufferable. But I would also say, excuse me, this is another sign of how climate change is making jobs that were once desirable just not desirable anymore. I know some people will say like there's nothing desirable about being a UPS truck driver, but I would say it is. If you're not college educated, these are very good jobs that pay good money and they have good benefits. So these jobs were definitely desirable in the past, but they're not really that desirable now, just with how much climate change is impacting just the environment these guys work in. Just what's the point of working a job where there is a high chance that you could die during the summertime or the springtime. Just not ideal. It also depends on the climates you're living in. If you're living in a place like Texas, I don't know how do you survive working this job where it's super hot, from what I've been told from a lot of people, for most of the year. Just that would be unbearable. But you just hope that in Congress and the Senate they pass a law to legislate this stuff. Hopefully they do. This is really some third world stuff. That's what I'd say about it.